All right, ladies and gentlemen, it appears that Zenless Zone Zero is finally back at it again and has achieved some shred of relevancy in the gacha space. But unfortunately, it's not really for good news, it's for more bad news. And one thing that you might have noticed, or players might have noticed across ZZZ 1.6, you know, the update for it with Silver, Ambi, and Trigger, is that the English voice actors for Agents, Lycon, and Soldier 11 have been replaced. Basically, all of their voice lines, their voice actors, they've been replaced completely. And boy, oh boy, this has turned into basically the hot topic across ZZZ. Nobody's even talking about the patch. Nobody's even talking about the new characters. They're mainly talking about this because of one person. Or not really one person, because of the actions of the VAs themselves. And so we've got Lycon's old VA was not informed of his replacement at all from Hoyo or Sound Cadence. This is sort of the post that Nicholas Thurkettle, the voice actor for Lycaon, or Lycon, whatever it is, communicated to Twitter. Proxies, I'm learning about this as you are, and I share your shock. Neither Hoyoverse nor Sound Cadence has communicated with me since October. I've been fully available and recorded multiple voice jobs in that time. I am trying to learn more and absorb this news. And so, ladies and gentlemen, at first glance, this does not look very good at all. There's a lot of people in the comments talking about how Hoyo doesn't directly hire their English VAs. They only hire their Chinese ones. English is handled by other studios like Sound Cadence. That is the main stuff that we're seeing over here. And so with that knowledge in mind, knowing that there's this relationship between Sound Cadence and Hoyo and how they go through these whole VA contracting and staffing, this makes a lot of people look really, really bad. Primarily, most of all, it makes Sound Cadence, the VA studio, look the worst out of all of them. Because they're supposed to be the ones responsible for the outsourcing. They're supposed to be the ones responsible for the replacements. And the way that Lycon's voice actor, or really former voice actor, is making it look is that they kind of just left him on red. They replaced him without communicating anything to him at all. And let's be honest here, that's a pretty shitty way to tell somebody that they lost their job. However, the situation gets a lot deeper than this. The situation gets a lot more complex than this because my oh my, there's a bit more going on. So we've got Mary Chase over here, and in this situation, Mary Chase was the voice of Soldier 11, and she was replaced as well. And she gives the reason, hey proxies, I was replaced as Soldier 11 because I am unwilling to perform work not covered by the SAG interim agreement during a strike for AI protections, the outcome of which will determine the future of our industry. Any other theories that pop up are incorrect. This is the voice actor of Soldier 11 basically saying, I got fired, I got replaced, I am not voicing Soldier 11 anymore because I was directly participating in the VA strike based around AI. That is essentially what is being communicated over here, and this makes a ton of sense. Right? ZZZ, honestly, is at a point in its lifespan where more negative press from not having voices, the game kind of like not being at the level of quality that it needs to be because of the lack of those voices, that's something that's likely going to bleed into ZZZ's bottom line. And so I'm taking this replacement, I'm taking these movements by Hoyoverse as sort of like a recognition that they kind of need to do some more work on the game. They're trying to make it as high quality as possible, and if there are barriers to making that happen, like a voice actor refusing to reprise their role, then they're taking the actions necessary to get their product to where it needs to be. And so, obviously, right, the whole situation with AI, very troubling situation for voice actors where they could record like 2 minutes of, you know, actual voicing or 2 hours, and then some AI model goes ahead, parses through everything when it comes to their vocals, and then replicates it, right, for like an entire game. And so for 2 hours of work, they're basically doing, you know, more like 20, 30, 40, and it's all fueled by AI. Awful stuff. But at the end of the day, there has to be a decision made by a developer team. There has to be a decision made by a publisher where they're just like, okay, we can either hang on and lower the quality of the product that we're pushing out, or just take action. And it seems like this studio, Sound Cadence, that's sort of being indicted here, was in some way maybe communicated to take action. And it seems like they're taking a lot of the damage here. This is also driven by the fact that in this post, right, Nicholas, Lycon's voice actor, is saying that he basically got ghosted. However, the situation gets deeper than this. He followed up. You can just look at his Twitter history. He made this post on March 11th talking about how nobody communicated with him. And then he makes this post. This is what I've been quiet about. I'm not SAG, so that he's not actually a part of the strike. But what game companies want to do with AI is an existential threat. True. I took a personal stand to ask for protection and had to be willing to give up the best thing that's ever happened in my professional life. I stand by my choice. So this sounds a little bit vague here, right? Not entirely sure what he's talking about losing, but a lot of people have insinuated that this basically means that he refused to reprise the role of Lycon across patches like ZZZ 1.4, which was a major patch where Lycon had a lot of voicing, and potentially, right, across all the subsequent patches. And that's why ZZZ made the decision to replace him, knowing the big role that Lycon was going to have in 1.6. And so, it turns out, people are not very happy with this man. I don't think a lot of people are giving Mary Chase a lot of flack, but boy, oh boy, they are not happy with Lycon. There's a post over here that basically highlights how Lycon's voice actor has been talking about his replacement, how it's been like a terrible thing, how the situation has been so bad for him. But it turns out a lot of people are viewing this as him sort of just doing it to himself. Dude skipped work for 6 months, then complained about getting replaced without communication. He would be fine if he just claimed that. Instead, he pulled his old studio that he didn't work for 6 months down in the mud with them and blamed them. And then admit that he knew what was going to happen. He was going to be replaced because he was basically going 6 months without doing any work. And a lot of people are saying, boy, oh boy, his career is a little bit cooked. Because let's be honest here, guys, burning the VA agency that you're working with for something in a situation that you kind of caused, in a situation that you kind of fueled by not doing your job, knowing what the consequences were going to be, and then, you know, talking about it in a way that makes it seem like you didn't know, it's a bit of an issue. It is a bit of an issue. And so, we have this whole situation going down. Sound Cadence's name is basically being dragged in the mud, and they had to make their own post from their official Twitter account describing the situation. From top to bottom, Sound Cadence Studios is a community of artists, as concerns have been raised regarding how we work, primarily driven by this message over here. As concerns have been raised regarding how we work with our voice actors, we wanted to take this opportunity to clarify where we stand and how we operate. Every contract at our studio features explicit AI protections, regardless of union status. Most of our staff are voice actors themselves and could not in good conscience offer other performers work we would not be willing to take. The decision to recast talent on any project is not made lightly. While sometimes our hands are tied as to what we can communicate and when, we understand how personally actors take their roles and always want to ensure that no one is ever blindsided. Our studio has and will continue to honor legacy casting on all projects we've inherited whenever possible, and always reach out to actors to reprise their roles before investigating any other options. And so, it's a bit of a tussle. We've got the VA studio themselves saying that they've done all their due diligence, that they've given all the support necessary. And then we have somebody over here saying that that's the opposite. And I'm not gonna lie, it looks a little bit sticky. It looks a little bit messy. I don't think Mary Chase is getting a lot of flack here because she's just being upfront about what is going on. And unfortunately, it seems like there's some conflicting stories. We even have people from Sound Cadence who I believe are working with the studio, and there are VAs themselves making a ton of responses to the Sound Cadence post. You're getting mad at the wrong parties. Studios have so little control over what clients do or what contracts they use. Sound Cadence has always worked hard to keep legacy casting and is always wonderful to work with. I've been voice acting with Sound Cadence for over a decade, and they always have gone far above and beyond in their communication with me. In an industry that sometimes treats actors as disposable, Sound Cadence treats me with respect. Sound Cadence is one of the most transparent studios I've ever worked for over the years. They are wonderful to work with with and have proactively protect their talent. People need to not cast blame so quickly and really think critically here. Having worked with and for Sound Cadence on many occasions, I can speak to their credibility. They're one of the most communicative studios I've ever worked with and always keep people well informed. There's a lot of stuff going on in a lot of different directions. But we do have one person in particular that's coming in to actually defend Lycon's voice actor. I'm not going to chime in on Sound Cadence's business, but I'll say that Nicholas Thurkettle is a stand-up guy, and it pains me to see him called a liar. Mary Chase was also a blast to work with, and it really gives me no reason to believe she's being dishonest. I've also never really heard bad things about Sound Cadence, and so this guy's coming in with the perspective of, should anyone really be getting the blame here between the VAs and Sound Cadence? As someone who works on video games regularly at a studio, it is very true that places like Sound Cadence and my studio are often middlemen. We're not privy to signing interim agreements like that. Just something to consider when you throw stones and cast blame. Lastly, the VAs have spoken. Sound Cadence has spoken. Who's the one party in this and the recastings before this that never speaks? Do they not have anything to say, or are they just passing the buck? Think about that next time you call a VA a liar or roast a studio. And so we now have another VA coming in, and I'm gonna be honest, what this post looks like to me is he's blaming Hoyo. It seems like he is blaming Hoyo because the company themselves, right? They're the one party in this that never speaks. That's clearly who is being referenced to over here. And so we got a VA themselves saying, don't blame the VA, don't blame the studio. Maybe let's start blaming the company. And I've got to say, this entire situation is a complete fucking mess. We have one side where it's Hoyoverse. They're not saying anything at all. We have one side, Nicholas, saying that he received no communications and that he's getting screwed over, fired without warning. And then we got Sound Cadence over here saying that they have done their due diligence. They've treated their voice actors very well, and they've done everything possible, right, to make this as smooth as possible. Three conflicting stories, no clear answers, and I'm gonna be honest, guys, I don't think we're ever gonna get one. And in this situation, what I think is clear is that these strikes, these voice actor replacements, these shifts in who the characters are and what they sound like because of this whole union strike, I think this is something that is going to continue. I think that this is something that we're going to be seeing across a lot more Hoyoverse games. I think it is quite clear that a lot of games have been receiving, specifically under the Hoyoverse umbrella, a lot of games, especially in their EN dubs, have been receiving critiques, complaints, have been getting marked down, lower ratings, bad reviews, because of the fact that so many characters, so many cutscenes, so many pivotal story moments have had no English dub at all. And that has, in a lot of ways, alienated a significant part of the player base, where you have the Don Hung from Honkai Star Rail not being voiced for over 2 patches, where he has hundreds of lines. You have situations in Genshin Impact where you have people, for events, where you have people in the story who aren't being voiced either. And I do think that this is a sign that Hoyo is going to start doing more of this. If we're gonna believe, or at least, you know, take a little bit of credit with what Chris DiTurti is saying over here. Because my oh my, it's a thing that is occurring in every single Hoyo game. And I think this is the most public replacement that there has been. There's been some smaller scope ones, right? With like Lucy, Sakaku, stuff like that. There's the whole Argenti and Tail and Ting Yun situation in HSR. Those have been a bit more like minor in scale, but it seems like those games had been sticking to their guns with their original voices. But I think now we're gonna start seeing a lot more replacements, and I think that this is gonna have a pretty big shift across the community, because you have a lot of people, right, who are in support of the VAs, who are in support of their strike, who are in support of their livelihood, but you also have the other side of the equation that just wants to play a good game. And let's be honest here, not having voice acting, having the characters be mute, that objectively makes these games significantly worse. And so with that, we'll just have to see what happens, but my opinion is, expect a lot of changes soon to a lot of these games soon. Let me know what you think. Peace out.